meetings on Tuesday, the 25th of July, and Wednesday, the 21st of February, considered two motions on the need to halt the proposed increase in tariffs and gave this responsibility to the Committee on Power. The committee met and did an investigative hearing, and these are the resolutions and the findings from the committee investigative hearing. The findings can be found on page 35 of the report, so that we can go direct to page 35. Taking into consideration the above observations and having regard to the oral and written submissions by stakeholders at the public investigative hearing, the committee makes the following findings. 1, since the conclusion of the privatization of power assets in 2013, the Nigerian electricity market has been plagued by huge liquidity crisis that cuts across the entire power value chain, and this is attributable to the subsidized tariff regime, where the federal government of Nigeria bears responsibility for between 75% to 91% of the monthly NBET invoices as tariff subsidy. 2, official figures made available to the committee indicate that although the federal government subsidy obligation reduced from 528 billion in 2019 to 144 billion in 2022, that it rose again to hit 2.9 trillion naira in 2024 due to foreign exchange and inflation, while the legacy debt of the gas supply companies stood at $1.3 billion. The Minister of Power, the Nigerian Electricity Regulatory Commission, and the distribution companies, DISCOs, were unanimous in their presentation that the over 200% upward review, which affected Band A category of customers, was the best option to reduce the subsidy burden from 240 billion per month to about 100 billion per month. However, the preponderance of opinion of stakeholders support the suspension of the tariff due to the bad timing and poor consultations, which is against the provisions of Section 48 and 49 of the Electricity Act 2023. 4, the upward review of the tariff under the MITO Multi-Year Tariff Order 2024 is a service-based tariff rather than a cost-reflective tariff. And this was justified by NEC on the basis of the feedback NEC received after the public hearing on tariff review, which is expected to catalyze investments by the DISCOs and strengthen the current migration away from NBET to bilateral contracts, which will allow the DISCOs pay the right rates to the GENCOs. The MITO 24-5, MITO is multi-year tariff order, was arrived after taking into consideration the key market review indices, namely inflation, exchange rate, transmission loss factor, generation cost, transmission and administrative costs, wholesale gas to power prices, and benchmark gas transportation tariff. However, NEC failed to provide what should happen to those rates in case of positive changes in the indices above. The MITRE 24-6 also approved the upward review of rates from 68 naira per kilowatt hour to 255 naira per kilowatt hour, and also abolished the customer classification typical of tariff design, which comprises of residential, R1, R2, and R3, commercial, C1 and C2, and demand to the present band A, B, C to E, thereby unilaterally switching customers from the nature of power usage to the feeder of connection. 7, the minimum remittance obligations of the distribution companies contained in this MITRE order is a far cry when juxtaposed with the monthly market invoice of 240 billion, implying that the MITRE 2024 approved a 91% monthly loss based on their minimum remittance obligation. 8, the generating companies, GENCOs, queried the fact that the multi-year tariff order is silent on the unpaid balance of their invoices after the distribution companies have met their minimum remittance obligations. 9, the generating companies stated that since 2013, the wholesale electricity market has not invoiced greater than 4,000 megawatts monthly. So if the entire 4,000 megawatts is divided by the 1.8 million band A customers, the system can only support an average band A customer load for 20 hours, leaving practically no energy for the rest of band B to E customers. And therefore, the MITRE 2024 will only entrench power starvation for those in customer classes band A, band B to E. The MITRE 2024-10 approved a CAPEX, which is capital expenditure, and OPEX allowance. OPEX is operating expenditure to the distribution companies without any evidence of their proper utilization of these two allocations under previous tariff orders. On metering, 11, the customer committee found that 47% out of the 12.1 million connected customers are currently metered, leaving a metering gap of 53% or 6.3 million customers, which is exclusive of those customers, those meters that need to be replaced, and upcomer customer enumeration. However, distribution companies are subject to a capping order to ensure that customers under estimated billings are not subjected to arbitrary bills when metered. 12, to address the perennial metering gap, the federal government had in the past intervened through various metering schemes since 2015 to ensure accelerated deployment of end-user meters, namely the Credit Assistance Program for Mass Metering Initiative, CAPMI, the Meter Asset Provider Programs, MAP, the National Mass Metering Program, NMMP, all of which achieved a metering deployment of 2.4 million meters, with a huge metering gap of 6.3 million customers, requiring about 800 billion to cover the gap. Currently, there is a presidential metering initiative being implemented through a presidential metering council under the chairmanship of the Honorable Minister of Power. 13, on the mandate of the committee to ensure judicious utilization of the 10.5 billion naira penalty imposed on distribution companies, the committee finds that the penalty imposed on distribution companies for non-compliance with the capping order is not cash payment, but a direct deduction in their approved operating expenses, chargeable to the customers via tariffs. 14, on the status of the federal government intervention to close the metering gap, the committee finds that from inception in 2020 to date, 55.4 billion has been disbursed by the Central Bank of Nigeria to 11 distribution companies for procurement and installation of 962,832 meters, 962,832 meters. The program is implemented through the CBN's established special purpose vehicle, NESI, that which is National Electricity Supply Stabilization Strategy Limited, as the fund administrator, while Meristem Wealth Management Limited is the fund manager. All the 11 discos benefited from this intervention, with each accessing about 5.4 billion only. As of today, 6.3 billion naira has been repaid, leaving an outstanding balance of 49 billion yet to be paid by the discos. 15, there is a subsisting agreement between the Federal Ministry of Power and the Ziglasis Network, comprising of an original tripartite agreement between the federal government, when it was NEPA, and Unistar High-Tech Systems and Ziglasis, dated 5th December 2003, for the manufacture, supply, installation, management, and maintenance of 3 million prepaid meters. By virtue of the agreement, Ziglasis is to be funded for the project by way of a loan through a $200 million DMO Eurobond, raised and converted at that prevailing market rate, which accrued at the bank interest to about 39 billion. 16, the absence of a consumer affairs department in the Ministry of Power to drive the demand side issues on the sector. Recommendations. This is on page 40. The committee, after exhaustive deliberations and observations, recommends as follows. 1, that NEC, the Nigerian Electricity Regulatory Commission, suspends the ongoing implementation of the multi-year tariff order 2024, which approved over 200% upward review of the previous tariffs from 68 naira per kilowatt hour to 225 naira per kilowatt hour to allow for robust consultation with customers on the various bands on the cost of service, instead of heavy reliance on feeder location and duration of service, which are difficult to determine and monitor. 2, that NEC should ensure full compliance with the mandatory requirement of stakeholder consultation under Section 48 of the Electricity Act 2023 regarding future regulatory decisions to avoid a repeat of the confusion and the public outcry that trailed the recent tariff increase. Mr. President, you know that a lot of Nigerians don't know where they belong, whether it is Band A, Band B, or C, or E. 3, that the Ministry of Power and NEC should, in the meantime, adopt measures to address the problem of power scarcity holistically, rather than its preoccupation with price manipulation, which has proven to be counterproductive. Mr. President, why the committee recommended this is that at the moment, in addition to NEC, to the DISCOs, and to the GENCOs and all the other areas, we have, at the moment, 3 different initiatives by the government located inside the presidency, which the committee has no access or information about. That is the Presidential Metering Initiative. We have nothing about it. We don't know who runs it. The Federal Government Power Company Limited. This Senate knows nothing about it. The National Assembly does not control it. And the Presidential Power Initiative, that is the Siemens Power Project, which we have no information about. And also the Niger Delta Power Holding Limited, which is running all the GENCOs, but are located in the presidency, and we do not run their budgets or oversight them. 4, that NEC should hold the DISCOs accountable for key performance indicators, KPIs, including the failure to deliver on their capital expenditure and operating expenditures, customer metering obligations under the Electricity Act, essential customer service obligations, including customer sensitization, implementation of energy credits to customers who have invested in transformers, meters, and other assets to the DISCOs. Mr. President, every senator here and most of the members of House of Rep continue to provide transformers and other items to their constituents, and yet this in no way is seen by NEC in holding the DISCOs accountable for such capital expenditures. 5, that the rate designs should only be cost reflective if proper account is taken of the relevant macroeconomic environment that determine the affordability of electricity to the different segments of the market. 6, that the federal government metering intervention should be encouraged and intensified to address the current metering gap of 6.3 million, and this must be pursued by the federal government without prejudice to the statutory obligation of the DISCOs to meter their customers, as provided under Section 68(1)(b) of the Electricity Act. In this regard, Mr. President should be commended for the introduction of the Presidential Metering Initiative. We only ask that the National Assembly should oversight this. 7, the Federal Ministry of Power should be advised to intensify efforts towards honoring the subsisting contract between Ziglas's Network Limited for the manufacture, supply, installation, management, and maintenance of prepaid meters, including the recent tripartite metering project consortium agreement, signed between ZNL, Dehabo Global Services, and Nigerian Army. It was dated 7 September 2023, which was signed by ZNL for metering of army barracks and other military facilities, or in the alternative, refund the initial funding of the federal government to the federal government. The reason is that there's a subsisting court agreement and a court order signed by the three entities. 8, that vigorous implementation of power decentralization provided for under the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria and the Electricity Act 2023 to relieve the federal government of the pressure to electrify every nook and cranny of this country should be encouraged. The Electricity Act has already given states and private entities the power to meter and supply power in their own right to different sections of the country. 9, the Ministry of Power should establish an electricity consumer protection unit to develop, implement, and enforce the electricity consumer protection component of the Electricity Act 2023 under sections 34(2)(c) and 1191(f). Conclusion. The committee wishes to use this opportunity to express its gratitude to the President of the Senate and other distinguished colleagues for finding us worthy to serve in this capacity. We so move.
Thank you very much for
Mr. President and my distinguished colleagues, and I want to commend the committee for a job well done. And I want to also call on our distinguished colleagues, Mr. President, for this opportunity. We should take this particular issue that affects Nigerians very seriously. So I want to refer to the Constitution. The Constitution says clearly that any other law that is inconsistent with the provision of the Constitution, this Constitution should prevail, and that law shall be, to the extent of the inconsistency, be void. This country belongs to us. This democracy belongs to the people. I'm surprised, and there are two surprises now. One is the sudden hike of the electricity tariff, and which to me is against the Constitution, because our Constitution is supreme. Section 42 says that you cannot discriminate against Nigerians. When I heard about this, Band A, Band 2, Band B, Band C, it's discrimination. It's discrimination, and it should not be allowed. This is the first time I'm hearing it, that you can get an hour for 20 hours, and somebody will get it too. Supposing you are living among the masses, and you can afford to pay for 24 hours, and that is what they are supposed to provide. Besides, this power supply, power distribution company belongs to Nigerians. They just took it like that and then use it to be loading charges on Nigerians. Suddenly one morning, they wake up again and say, a cybercrime levy. Thank God this president is listening. And we have a responsibility of calling people to order. If you see how the Minister of Power was presenting this increase in power, as if he owns the company and these Nigerians are being provided. It should not be like that. We are appointed, we are elected. Please, SP, I can see that you are running out of patience. But we are supposed to be doing the right thing. Please. We must commend when somebody does a good job and gives us a leadway, we should follow. I'm happy. It's only that he ignored another group. There should be Banji, and I belong to that group. Ban generator and renewable energy, because we don't see the light anywhere. So let's take this issue of power so that it doesn't come up. Nigerians are getting too much shock unnecessarily. Somebody will just wake up and say and get a crazy idea that, oh, increase the power this thing, and you go there and announce it. No, it should go through the National Assembly. That's why we are here. We are representing the people, and anything that affects the people should be before the National Assembly before you do it, please. And so let us not, like this now, if we start discussing this very important matter, you say, oh, 10 minutes, 2 minutes. No. In the U.S. Senate, if a senator stands up to speak, you don't tell him round up until he yields the floor. That is how it's supposed to be. Please.
So, Chief Whip, you are the one that...
I said earlier that this is an unnecessary distraction, and we have something here that may not be in the American version, the mood of the Senate. So if somebody stands up to speak for 2 hours and he looks behind in line with the mood of the Senate and there is no senator, maybe we can go on. But quite frankly, I think this is a very, very serious matter, Mr. President, that we just need to concentrate on. Mr. President, it's very sad the way things are going. And I want to commend the committee for a very thorough job, having gone through this report. I also want to commend the aspect of the report that has indicated presidential initiatives. I think that given the power situation in this country and some of the things in this country, any initiative from the presidency or from the president that seeks to ameliorate the conditions of the ordinary person should be appreciated. And it's on that note that I want to commend Mr. President for his initiative on metering, and I want to commend the whole system of medicine, because if you look at it, we are talking about price increases in tariffs and the rest of them, and they are not commensurate with the supply of electricity. In 1 hour, there will be power outage for more than 10 times in this country. Nobody is addressing that one. They are talking about how to increase money for discos. And like the report has shown, which I have said here before, we provide transformers for our communities. And when you provide transformers, even from these discos and the rest of them, to come and install these transformers becomes a problem. If they want to come and even certify the transformers, you have to pay them. And they get the money, and they take ownership of these transformers. If there is a breakdown in line today to any community, they will call you to come and fix it for them. These people will not be there. To come and help in installing them is a problem. And so, Mr. President, I think that we should, on the whole, given what has been recommended here, adopt the recommendations of this committee, because it's a very thorough job and it speaks to the frustration of the average Nigerian. And so it must be halted. We must resolve here to halt this power increase because it's arbitrary and it doesn't speak to any realistic situation in our society today. And unless we take very serious actions against some of these agencies and companies that have taken over some of our national assets, we will not achieve results. I proposed here before that this ceding of this power distribution and rest of them to this discourse without appropriate expertise will not help this country. And so, Mr. President, let's take these recommendations and let's adopt them and ensure that this arbitrary increase does not see the light of day. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you. We need to regulate our procedure, and the part of regulation is to give allotment to people to speak. If you speak for 1 hour, 2 hours, then others will not speak. And unfortunately, and you are a chief whip. I mean, well, okay. I think we need to understand this. The United States democracy, yes, it's presidential like ours, but there are differences between what we do here and what they do there.
Yes.
Section 60 of the Constitution gives us the license to regulate our procedure. And we have an in our rules. Excuse me, and we have our rules. And our rules give us that arrangement where everybody will be given.
Mr. Senate President. Order, 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 order.
Now, thank you very much for the attention. This report, not about time, and if it's about time, you are the one that regulates the time, you are the chief whip. So, minority leader, it's your job. So tomorrow, listen, tomorrow, come with a motion to amend our rules so that senators will be given 1 hour to speak anytime they want to speak. So you bring, so bring